If you've ever wondered how to showcase your clinic's success stories while staying professional and compliant, this episode is for you. Welcome to the TCM Teach podcast, the business podcast designed exclusively for acupuncturists and herbalists who want to grow thriving practices while, of course, maintaining integrity and trust. I'm Matthew Soppy-Smith, licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, professor, and entrepreneur. And today we're talking about testimonials and case studies, how to use them effectively to attract patients, highlighting your expertise, building your credibility without compromising ethics or patient privacy. So we're going to dive in right after my disclaimer. Please remember, I'm simply a practitioner here to support you on your journey. The information shared in this podcast is intended for educational and learning purposes only. So for guidance specific to your business, please consult with the appropriate licensed professional. Thank you. All right, so why testimonials and case studies actually matter? Think about when you were in school. Hopefully you had teachers explaining case studies that they worked on in their clinics or in their experience. A way that I teach very often is using real-world examples and tying them into stories so that my students understand the concepts I am trying to get across. I find that very important, and that way it sticks. I still remember a lot of the stories that my teachers/masters would share when I was in school, and the stories are really what stuck for me. So how do we bring storytelling or case studies and storytelling together, ultimately to show patients a side of what it is that we do, and how does that turn well for us when it comes to marketing? Patients are going to trust other patients' experiences more than just marketing copy. They want to hear the real world stuff. Well, I heard it worked for that person, so maybe it would work for me. And it goes on the flip side too. If someone had a poor experience with something, oh, my friend tried that, but it didn't work for them, so maybe it wouldn't work for me. Okay, so we have the ability to share our experiences in the clinic and show other potential clientele or patients how they might be in those exact shoes and how we could help them. So by sharing success stories, we can build credibility, trust, and clarity. Hey, I'm an acupuncturist in your local area. Here's what I do. I want to share a case study with you today that I found really interesting. Perhaps it could help you too. Case studies are going to show expertise. It's going to show your process, and it's going to show your outcomes in a very structured way. There's nothing strange about it. So when it's done ethically, of course, we have to follow laws. It's very important, privacy laws. Testimonials and case studies strengthen your reputation and attract the right patients. Testimonials are arguably some of the best things that you can get versus sharing a case study without consent is sometimes, here's what I'm trying to say. Even if you don't say someone's name, if someone listens to what you put out and they're like, oh, is that me? Even though you never say their name, never say identifying information, if it's a unique case, they may question like, oh, is that me? It may make them potentially uncomfortable. Now, if you're following the law, there's no identifying information in that case. However, it's always good to simply get some form of consent from a testimony. For example, I've had people come into my clinic say, oh, you can use me as a case study anytime. Oh, you can use me in your marketing all you want. That's totally fine with me. Okay, those are the people that it's better to share examples from. But even if people don't care for you to share their case as a case study, you can still get a testimony from them. If you know they've had good experience, hey, would you write a testimony for me? I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow my practice and help more people in your situation. I know you've had a lot of success. Would you write a little blurb for me that I could share? I would really appreciate it. I don't even have to put your name. I just really appreciate something like that. And usually they say yes, if they like you, of course. So you really want to be able to show your expertise, your process, your outcomes. So when this is done ethically, testimonies and case studies do strengthen your reputation, and they're going to attract the right people into your door. Ethical guidelines for testimonials is the next thing I want to touch on here. Always get written consent when possible. Even though you're not providing identifying information, written consent is still a good idea, especially in the US where HIPAA laws are very strict. We want to make sure we follow those because a HIPAA violation is a pretty serious issue. We don't want to run into those issues. You want to avoid exaggeration as well. Keep testimonials truthful and representative. You cannot twist how that goes. You have to use concrete information to stay ethical because you also don't want to inflate what people may perceive or want from your clinic. Oh, I heard you made someone's crazy condition go away with one treatment. Where in reality, no, that's not what happened. You worked with them for like several years and then it was their first treatment in like year 5 where they got all better or something. Like, okay, let's not inflate something. Let's be realistic. We want to maintain the privacy. I can't stress that enough. Don't include identifiable information about the patient. That's not even legal. You also need permission. I would just get permission anyway. But again, if you get the permission, it's really, really powerful marketing. You also want to respect boundaries. Patients should feel comfortable declining to participate, and you have to be okay with that. Bottom line. Ethics and trust are non-negotiable. Never, ever sacrifice your integrity, your privacy practices for marketing. That is not okay. Don't do that ever. So, how would you structure a case study? Say you got the permission and someone says, yeah, totally. Like, you can use my case as a case study to help others learn and teach about your clinic. I talk about your clinic all the time. Like, those are the kinds of patients be like, hey, I would really love to share this. I won't use identifying information. You could do a patient challenge or a goal without identifying any details. That's what you want to share. It's like, hey, patient, this age, presented to this in the clinic, and then you share your approach and treatment plan. Here's what I did. This was my approach. This is what I was thinking. This is what we decided to do. Outcomes or improvements. So you share ultimately what was the conclusion, how many sessions did they have, what kind of improvements did they see, and then what are they still facing now? And then you can also have an optional patient reflection or testimonial. If they're willing to put themselves out there, that's different. If you have written consent from them, that is completely different. But please have written consent in their file, not verbal. Written consent is very important. That protects you a lot more legally. But check with a lawyer, of course. Don't take my word for it. You just want to make sure that a well-structured case study is in place. And that way you can tell a whole story that's going to educate either other practitioners, prospective clients, and it's going to inspire without breaching any privacy. The last thing you want is to break someone's trust or the law. Don't do that. We don't want to break the law. So where and how would you do this? How would you go about this? Testimonials page. You can have a testimonials page. I've done that in the past, and you can have case studies and blog posts. You can write about it. And if they're willing to have you share, great, cool. Social media, you can have short quotes, anonymous stories, or graphics with the story underneath. Email newsletters, highlight patient wins or educational takeaways. Patient wins, not necessarily individual patient wins. I don't love this one, but I still wrote it down. What I'm trying to say here is when you're highlighting a patient win, it's like we had X amount of, for example, if you work for fertility, like in fertility, and X amount of clients had successful fertilization. I know it's like a weird way to put it, but when we're talking about fertility, had they got pregnant, right? That would be a really good thing. That's a patient win. So our clinic helped 10 women get pregnant this month. Isn't that exciting if you're focused on fertility? because fertility is so popular. It's a good way to put it. Like, that's okay. What you don't want is be like more specific than that, unless someone really wants to share their story and how great you are. Get written consent. Educational takeaways are really good. You can put those in any newsletter. I talked about this in continuing education, just as continuing to educate your patients, giving some educational takeaways. It's a really good way to segue into something. Here's some wins that we had this month in the clinic, and here are some educational takeaways. That's totally fine to share. That's more what I'm trying to say. I just had a long-winded way of saying it. Community talks or presentations. You can share learnings without revealing identities. So this would be an example of something that I do lecturing in a TCM school, is I would share case studies that I've seen in the clinic without identifying information, but it's for the sake of learning, right? You could do a community talk or presentation. Again, if you focus on something like sports medicine, then you can share how you help athletes recover faster and through things like neuromuscular reeducation. That'd be great, right? How does that work with acupuncture? The context of wherever these things take place is really what matters. So you want to choose the platform and the format that, one, you feel good about, and something that's going to reinforce trust and education. Because that's ultimately what we do. We are teachers. We're master teachers of health, longevity, and well-being and balance. At least we should be. Here are some common mistakes to avoid, however. Using fake or exaggerated testimonials. Just don't do that, ever. Sharing identifiable patient information, that's literally illegal in the United States. Overloading platforms with stories. You want quality stories over just quantity. I know there's a big narrative to, like, if you're trying to do the social media game, putting out so many videos every single day, whereas in reality, it's like quality is really what matters a lot more. Ignoring consent or written permission. You can't ignore that. You're putting yourself in hot water if you ignore that step. Don't do it. So ethical missteps can damage credibility more than not sharing at all. So we don't want that. Don't do it. So last episode, you heard me talk about Yi, Shen, and Qi, and I'm going to talk about that again in the context of testimonials and case studies. Your goal is service and education, not just marketing. We want to use our intellect on that, right? Our Yi. Our Shen, or presence, again in this case, you want to share stories with authenticity and be calm, but be confident. And Qi, or Qi flow, case studies should be clear, concise, and easy to understand. Just let it flow easily. If it feels like too much of a roadblock, if it feels like stagnation, then maybe it's just not a good idea. Patient stories are extensions of your care and integrity. Hopefully, they're not just marketing tools, but there's no reason you can't use them to your advantage when possible, when granted permission. So you want to leverage testimonials and case studies ethically. That's what's going to allow you to highlight your expertise. And there's a fine line of how to do it. And this is something that we could dive into a lot further, but I still wanted to bring it to your attention because you probably were experiencing it when you were at least a student in school. And you've probably experienced it as a professional too. Oh yeah, I've helped people with that condition before. I'd be happy to help you too. Oh, hey doc, you ever deal with frozen shoulder? Yeah, I've worked with that all the time. I had a patient just last week, came in with pain, 9 out of 10 and left with a 1 out of 10 in one treatment. That actually happened, by the way. That was kind of fun. So just as an example, it's a very simple way to do it. So leverage those testimonies and case studies when possible. Of course, if you want further resources for collecting and sharing testimonials or case studies ethically, check out the Practitioner Hub membership on the TCM Teach Patreon. That's me. That's where I provide resources, downloads. You have the ability to watch or listen to the episodes, stream, download, all without ads. And it's in higher definition as well. So better listening, better audio. And I always provide PDF workbook pages to help you plan out and take further steps of how to implement what I talk about in each episode. So this is like school, everybody. It's probably the cheapest business school you could possibly find, but I'm trying to be relatable and accessible for as many people as I can be, because that's my mission with this podcast, is to help Chinese medicine stay on its feet and help all of you get great revenue and help a lot of people along the way. So keep that in mind. So with that said, in our next episode, we are going to talk about networking, how to simply think about networking with other practitioners and doctors, ways that work really well and maybe ways that don't, or maybe some ideas you haven't thought of yet. So until then, thank you for tuning in to the TCM Teach podcast. I will see you next time. Take care.